Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 709. Elland's Warning. As Klein looked at the bar, which was so silent that he could hear breathing, he was taken aback. Only then did he step in and walk straight to the bar counter, as though nothing had happened. I should change my appearance the next time I come, he thought in frustration, just short of face-palming. Ukfa's lack of awareness that Gehrman Sparrow had successfully hunted Slaughterer Curtius had made Klein believe that the latest news hadn't reached the city of generosity, and he boldly came to the seaweed bar. To his surprise, the problem lay in Ukfa, who had kept a distance from the adventurer circles. He was a little behind on the news, and the crazy adventurer's infamy had already spread amongst the pirates around the Rørsted archipelago. Sighing silently, Klein sat in front of the bar counter and rapped the wooden counter. 1 glass of Southville beer. 6 pence. The bartender gulped his saliva with great difficulty. Klein took out a few copper pence and placed it in front of him. Without a change in expression, he asked, "Any developments recently?" The bartender took the money and carefully delivered the beer to Gehrman Sparrow. Then, he forced a smile and said, "Admiral Amirius Revolt has been transferred back to Backlund. Admiral Robert Davis has replaced him, becoming the highest-ranking naval commander of the surrounding waters for the kingdom. The archipelago's situation is a little tense, and many pirate crews have sent people to gather intelligence. Admiral Amirius was ultimately implicated by his brother and lost his post. However, as long as he wasn't directly involved, it can't get worse for him when considering his status as a demigod. At the very least, he can maintain the treatment he receives as an admiral. Nothing will happen to his family either. Once the matter blows over, he might still have a chance of being a high-ranking member of the Navy." Klein gulped down the beer and asked in passing, "Which family is Robert Davis from?" "No, he's not a noble. He's one of the rare officers who slowly rose up the ranks to admiral. In the Berserk Sea, Sonia Island, and East Balam, he has rendered plenty of meritorious services." The bartender recalled the commendations the papers recently had for Admiral Robert Davis. After a pause, he said, "However, I heard that he has received the sponsorship of many nobles." "Yes, with the Imperial Navy, admirals who are from the royal family or aristocrats, or have close ties with them, take up at least 80%. The remaining 20% are mainly rear admirals and vice admirals." Klein had long learned of the situation from the documents he received from Amirius Revolt. Compared to this, the army was a lot better. Gehrman Sparrow didn't continue asking as he seemed to focus on his drinking. The bartender then added, "In the past 2 to 3 months, the resistance has been very active. They've been constantly attempting to destroy railways or set up blockades on public roads. They've given the Governor General's office quite a headache, forcing it to dispatch large numbers of soldiers to maintain a smooth flow of traffic. However, the resistance army seldom clashes with them head-on. I'm aware of that. It's all going according to my plans. In a place where the natives and mixed bloods take up 80%, it's not difficult for the resistance to gather accurate intelligence. Coupled with external sponsors, it wouldn't be hard for them to live on for short periods of time. The reason why they were in a dire situation in the past was all because Calvetua was an irrational sea serpent. It often got them to attack key nodes in a city, fighting head-on with the lone kingdom's navy and army." Klein mumbled to himself in delight as he drank another mouthful of beer. He had also warned the resistance to not be overly active. If they forced the Governor General's office into a corner, the lone kingdom might send Sequence 5 Beyonders or even demigods who were good at pursuit and tracking. With the resistance's strength, there was no way they could put up a fight. In the name of Sea God, Klein's instructions were to maintain while slightly improving their present situation and await for the global situation to change. This wasn't too far off. According to the various matters Miss Justice had feedback on, and with the hangman giving insight that affirmed this, it was certain that once the Lone Kingdom was done with its internal reforms and making the original and newly added ironclad warship become its main force in combat, a war against the southern continent's colonies was inevitable. He silently drank his beer until the bartender was done. He then wore his hat, got up, and left the bar, heading straight for his inn. Along the way, he saw bronze-skinned children with curly hair and natives with brown jackets and pantaloons. These people either made way in horror without even looking up, or they were hunched in a corner, looking at Klein with a complicated look in their eyes. Klein helplessly curved the ends of his lips as he silently returned to his room. He didn't immediately change his appearance and head to the various bars to seek out pirates. This was because he was certain that they would hide the entire night and not appear again. Just as Klein was planning to enter Grosel's travels to explore it, there was a knock on his door. Without needing to ask, all he did was grip the knob when the visitor's appearance naturally surfaced in his mind. It was a middle-aged man dressed in a dark red coat and white slacks. He wore a ship-shaped hat. The corners of his eyes and mouth, as well as his forehead, had clear wrinkles. He was none other than the captain of the White Agate, military personnel, just Elland. Impressive. News of me appearing in Byam just spread, and he managed to find where I'm staying. Of course, it's because I didn't attempt to hide myself. I directly used my identification documents to check in. Klein turned the knob and pulled open the door. He politely greeted him. Good evening. Good evening. I'm very glad to see you back in Byam. Elland took off his hat and entered the room without any reservations. Is there something? Klein pulled a chair over and sat down. Elland sat opposite him and chuckled. Isn't visiting a friend the most important matter? You're such a smooth talker. Too bad Anderson is gone, or he can learn from you. Klein felt triggered for some reason. He maintained his usual state and looked into Elland's eyes. All right, you've made your visit. Elland seemed to have expected such a response. He smiled and said, Do you still remember Donna? Of course, she and her brother are adorable. I wonder if they've recovered from the fright I gave them the last time and have given up any curiosity towards the mysterious world. Klein calmly replied, I don't have amnesia. Forgetting unimportant matters aids our mental health. This isn't said by Emperor Roselle. Elland simply explained. Didn't you tell Donna's father that he should post an advertisement in the Sonia Morning Post for 3 days in a row, asking to buy Demir's special cured meat if he needs your help? He did so recently, but unfortunately, you weren't in Byam or the nearby seas. What happened after that? Klein's instincts told him that Donna and her family weren't in serious trouble based on Elland's relaxed attitude. Elland chuckled and said, I heard your conversation back then, and after discovering the advertisement, I visited them using the address. As you know, Donna is a lovely lady. She reminds me of my daughter. The matter isn't too complicated. Erdy, who's Donna's father, had a bunch of valuable goods plundered by the crazy captain. This plunged him into a terrible economic situation. Although it isn't as bad as going bankrupt, life for him has definitely turned for the worse. That's why he wishes to commission you to get the goods back. I knew you weren't in Byam back then, so I had to go through my own channels to help Erdy recoup the goods at a reasonable price. Crazy Captain? Klein first found the title familiar before recalling where he had heard it before. According to red-haired Helene, Vice Admiral Aylmont Tracy's delivery of slaves for the Demonist sect was passed off to Crazy Captain Connors Victor. The latter appeared to have close connections with many of the slave dealers and merchants in the Lone Kingdom. And this was tied to the truth behind the human disappearances in the colonies, as well as the underlying reason of the Great Smog of Backland. I've always been trying to investigate this matter. Back when I attacked Tracy, that was half the reason, but unfortunately, I didn't succeed. Later, I was busy acting for the digesting of the potion and my search for mermaids, so I temporarily abandoned my investigations. Klein's thoughts raced as he asked without a perturbed look, Where's Crazy Captain now? Erdy has already gotten back his goods. Elland hissed, emphasizing that the matter had been settled. Klein looked at him and repeated, Where's Connors Victor now? Elland shook his head in exasperation. I've no idea, but his subordinates are still in Byam trying to gather intelligence. As you know, Admiral Amirius has returned to Backland, and he's been replaced by Admiral Davis. Many changes are in place, so the pirates need to have a new handle of the latest situation. Therefore, I guess that Connors's ship is docked in the shadows of one of the nearby islands, but that's a guess with no way to confirm. After listening in silence with his hands clasped, Klein said, "Thank you." Elland exhaled and looked out the window as his expression rapidly turned solemn. "I came here today to tell you that you're too eye-catching. The higher-ups are beginning to pay attention to you. A powerhouse that can easily kill Curtius wouldn't be ignored. It's best you stop using this identity for checking in, otherwise you might face some difficult problems." Klein nodded seriously and said, "All right." He was very grateful for Captain Elland's warning, but he didn't show it on his face. After Elland left, Klein immediately changed his appearance, switched ins, and confirmed that he wasn't tracked by the military. After doing all of that, he began considering the search for crazy Captain Connors Victor. To others, this was an extremely difficult task, but Klein had a trick up his sleeve. It was to use the sea god's scepter and communicate with nearby sea creatures. As long as Connors Victor was in the Roasted Archipelago's waters, there was no way he could hide from Klein. Of course, it was necessary that he had enough time to perform the search.